Hi, I'm Jill Vitale-Aussem with the Eden Alternative. Thank you for joining us today. We have a really important topic to discuss today, and that is how to attract compassionate talent, which is always important and is even more important right now in this era of COVID-19. So I'm really excited to have experts here with me to talk about this. We've got Tony and Holly from Eklego Workforce Solutions. And we also have another Tony with us today from Masonic Villages. And so we have a long history with both of these organizations. Masonic Villages, I believe Tony Knepp has been involved with the Eden Alternative since the late 90s. Which is amazing. A lot of the communities are part of our Eden Alternative Registry. And Eklego Workforce Solutions has been a value-added partner with us for years. So we've got a great conversation today, and I would love for our guests to introduce themselves, if you would. Let's start with the Eklego team. Tony, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, thanks, Jill. We're really a pleasure to be here with you and to talk to the audience that's connected directly or indirectly with Eden. But so my name's Tony Coccitto. I'm the vice president with Eklego, and been with the organization for many years. And we, again, like you say, we have a long history with Eden. And thank you to Tony Knepp for joining us. Masonic Villages in Pennsylvania has been a partner of ours for about 9 years, and so we have the highest respect for everything they do. So we look forward to hearing Tony's perspective in this topic. So I'll let Holly introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Holly Eschberger. I am Vice President of Operations at Eklego. I've been with the company for almost 17 years, and just very humbled and honored to be able to be a part of an organization that serves the population that we do, and really honored to be able to take part in this with two organizations that we're very passionate about, both the Eden Alternative and Masonic Villages of PA. Very humbling to be able to represent our partners and do what we do.
Great.
And hi there, my name's Tony Knepp. I work at Masonic Villages of Pennsylvania. I've been there now for almost about 7 years. So my role, I'm our corporate manager of human resources for Masonic. And if you're not familiar, Masonic Villages has locations which spread from near Pittsburgh all the way to Philadelphia. So we kind of are across the state of PA. And my role is providing, human resource guidance to our Elizabethtown campus, which is located in Lancaster County, which is where I am in, and then corporately to our other locations, really helping them and partnering and being that liaison with, Holly's team over at Eklego to really always continually drive kind of our recruiting efforts and our strategy. And as Jill said, we have been a member of Eden now for probably since 1998, 1999. So we're honored to be here.
Thank you all for being here. And I should have pointed out too that Tony Coccitto from Eklego and I have an even longer history that both of us forgot about. This is kind of a very funny story. When I started as the CEO of the Eden Alternative, and I met Tony because Eklego was a value-added partner. We met at a conference and we started talking, and we realized that we both went to the same college, Alfred University in Alfred, New York. And not only that, we were there during the exact same time. We were in the same market research class together and had the same favorite professor, Dr. Amy Rummel, and neither one of us ever remember meeting each other, huh, Tony?
And we took us about a half an hour when we had that conversation to figure that out. So it was a small world.
It is a small world for sure. So let's get right into this conversation. And thank you to everybody who's joining us live. Please pop in any questions or comments you have as we move ahead. We want this to be an interactive discussion as much as we can. So Tony Knepp, Masonic Villages, can't thank you enough for being here. I know you all have a little bit going on right now, right? And that's an understatement. And we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. What can you share with people who are maybe watching who aren't, working in these communities right now about what are the challenges that are going on right now in your communities?
So we have a few different challenges. Let's start with who are we serving? So the residents, right? And some of the challenges that they're facing. So Masonic Villages has, we're kind of like a city to ourselves, right? Where we have all of these different services that residents are just so used to attending all the time. They don't have to go outside of Masonic Villages to have their haircut. We have our own salon here. They don't have to go outside to go to a gym. We have our own gym here. And all those different things that you think of, have now been shut down and closed. Mm-hmm. And when you think about maybe our core of what people think of long-term care, that healthcare type setting, right? And those residents, probably one of the biggest things that has impacted them is even though all of those services are shut down, a lot of our communal services as well are shut down for our residents. So you think about what typically is a resident's best time of day. I think a lot of people would say like meal times, right? Because you have your friends, you have your table that you sit at, and that now they haven't done that in probably over a month. So you have residents that are, historically in an area that's just hard to be in. They're away from their homes, they're away from their families, and now our residents are more confined to their rooms. And we're now charged with feeding them in their rooms, bringing activities to them, bringing people to them to, really prevent those plagues that exist in long-term care, right? So that's kind of the resident side. And then the employee side of being in long-term care, we have really ramped it up and have a lot of precautions in place that every single employee must go through. So for example, you probably notice this if you go into other healthcare facilities, but at Masonic, our employees now, they can't come in through any entrance. All of our entrances are locked down. Employees now have to be screened twice a day, literally getting their temperature taken twice a day, just so we're being proactive and preventing any sort of illness coming on. Our staff, especially in long-term care, have really had to step up and do more work. So when I talk about screening people every day, who's doing all that? It's our own staff, and they were doing something before they were doing this, and now they have to step in and do this extra work. And thankfully, in Elizabethtown and some of our other campuses, we've been very blessed and been able to stick to our mission, our mission of love of serving our community individuals, which include our own employees and their families. So, we were able to not lay anyone off, but, redirect those barbers and those cosmetologists to serve our healthcare center with maybe assisting residents in feeding, to help screen employees, to help just sit down and have conversations with residents, all day long. Because in E-Town alone, we have a 453 bed facility that we need, to really continue to enhance our residents' well-being in life. So, from the staff perspective, it is a lot, and there are times I feel like it ebbs and flows, and we're all in that same ebb and flow. There are times when we're all in a really high, and we still really love coming to work and enjoying it, and there are other times where we're pushing through it together. So,
yeah, I think that probably reflects what we're all feeling right now, right? Where some days you're like, okay, everything's going to be fine, and then the next day, it's just such an unknown time. And so while all this is going on, recruiting doesn't stop, right? And I know, and I'm not sure what's happening at your communities, but at other places when there are tests and people come back positive, even if they don't have symptoms, they can't be at work. And so this staffing challenge that we've had in this field for some time, and I'm guessing you probably haven't experienced it quite as much as others because of your culture and your work with ECLA Go, but it's even more pressure right now in getting the right people and attracting those people to come work in your communities. What are candidates saying right now about working in senior living? What are you hearing from people who are applying for jobs?
Do you want me to start, Holly or Tony?
Tony, you start first, because I know you had a great thought you shared with us earlier.
Yeah, so actually, and I'll get into some of the things that we're doing, during the crisis. But so for the time being, we're actually human resources is doing a lot of our interviews for our clinical staff, because we've taken the mindset of let nursing do nursing, we got the rest, to really just solidify that teamwork. And one thing I've been hearing in a lot of my clinical interviews is just the culture. Like, our culture is really sticking out with the candidates that we're interviewing. I think of a candidate just last week. It was a RN that I interviewed, and I one of my first questions is, why us? Like, why did you apply to Masonic Villages? Like, why are we sitting here having a conversation? And just time and time again, it's that culture that I hear. So this RN in particular, he actually heard about us not through all this advertising that we're doing, which works really well, but he heard it just through person-to-person connections. And he was a physical therapy assistant, and he's helping the elderly from time to time. And he conversations happen. Oh, well, where do you live? And what are you doing? And Masonic Villages comes into play, and then all he hears is good things, right, from the care that's being provided. And those good things, aren't me. That's our staff, going above and beyond every day to care. And those just connections and culture just seep through ways which you don't really even think of, and they come out and they attract candidates.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting time to recruit in this industry. So as you mentioned, there were certainly challenges prior to this. So the challenges shift a little bit. One thing that we're hearing from candidates, and it's different. So with the organizations that we serve, we hire both their clinical and their non-clinical staff. So with the clinical, what we're really hearing is a call. It's, they're feeling drawn to do this, and they may not be clinical currently, but they're feeling pulled to come in and take care of the residents. So there's a lot of shifts taking place that allow that to happen, actually, because while the clinical teams are often very heavily taxed and burdened, there's a role for maybe somebody not with the clinical skills, but with a passion for doing that can come in and support. So overwhelmingly, we're hearing from clinical candidates a call. There is more concern from the non-clinical candidates as far as safety, but that's another really interesting thing, because as far as safety is concerned, it's a very regulated environment. So, there's some positives that we can put out to the candidates that may be working in a healthcare setting that isn't as regulated. So that can actually be a draw during a time like this. All of our clients, and I think also what my team is really experiencing is there's been a slowdown. People previously, it was hard to get people on the phone, and people were always rushed when we were talking to them on the phone. People want to talk now. They've got nothing but time on their hands. So it's really, we're able to spend more time with the candidates on the phone. We're able to make a deeper connection with them. And really, we've always showed the mission of all of our partners. That's a big part of what we do, but we can really get granular and more in depth about it and create a deeper connection with that candidate and for them prior to their interviews.
And Holly, if I could just kind of pull out a couple things that you said when you said that, I was like, wow, and I think you're going to talk a little bit about this, but there are so many people that have lost their jobs sadly, right, in restaurants and in hotels and in all of these fields. And there is a fear about, because you hear on the news about all these things that are happening in nursing homes, right? But if anybody knows how to enact infection control procedures, it's the places that have been doing this forever. I mean, that's what and this is a very different situation. However, nursing homes and assisted living communities and senior living communities, I mean, have been dealing with influenza every year and norovirus. And so it's not this brand new thing that it is in a lot of fields. Like if you went to, not that there's, because we need people to work in grocery stores too and places like that. But as far as fear goes, you're entering a place where people know how to do this really well, right? And the other thing I would just point out that you said is, we make assumptions about people not having time to talk because we might not have time to talk. And so that was really something I hadn't thought about, that candidates are able to talk right now because everybody's at home. So thank you for bringing up those really important things to remember.
Yeah, and they want to talk. And, one of the things we can easily stress to them, like you said, the regulations and the infection control, it's a very controlled environment now. So the residents are very closely monitored. The team, as Tony Knapp mentioned, is very closely monitored. So your exposure is really much more limited than it would be in another healthcare environment or really any other environment.
That's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Holly.
Yeah.
Tony, did you want to jump in with some thoughts on that, Tony Coccitto?
Yeah, I think in senior living, there's such an opportunity to really take advantage of what's happening. Even though we don't want this, obviously, but I think what's important is to be very, very specific and provide clarity to candidates who are interested in working for your organizations. And so when you have a reputation in your community to be an employer of choice, you can't create that overnight. So having that going into this pandemic really is an opportunity for you to shine. And so if you're not in that position, you're going to struggle more. So we're very fortunate to have partners in several states, like we work with Masonic villages. So we're able to see various markets and generally what the general consensus is in regards to, all right, is this an area that's hit hard versus not so hard, depending on where you live? And so Holly made a great point about people do have time, but even people who don't have time and they may be working somewhere else and they're not feeling secure or they're not feeling they have the support, and when they're doing more research online, and we'll get into this more during this call, but I think the key is what we're hearing is more questions, and we need to be prepared to really advocate for the organization. And so the key question is why work here versus anywhere else, and be prepared to articulate that and take the time for the candidate to then acknowledge and allow them the opportunity to ask questions. And so building trust is really critical, more critical today than ever. And so those are my initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, Tony, that's what we're seeing with the organizations that we work with, is where they have a really strong culture, where they are an employer of choice, where people are empowered, where there's trust with the team members and family members. They're still going through this horrible time with everyone else, but it's easier than if you don't have that trust and you don't have empowerment, and it's a really institutional structure. It's a really good point. Really good point. So what are you all seeing, in terms of applicant workflow during this time? Like, are people applying for jobs? What's going on right now?
Yeah, that's interesting as well. I think overall, I look back over from January forward, and overall there's about a 10% decrease in applicant flow. The other thing to take into consideration with that, though, is that there's also a decrease in positions posted, because our partners really, as Tony Knapp mentioned previously, the positions that aren't care, like hands-on care, clinical care, or dietary or essential functions those people have been redeployed into other roles. So positions that may have been open in those departments have been paused. So there is overall a decrease in applicant flow. And of course, our sampling is very limited, so it'd be hard to say, but we do see a difference a difference region to region as well, which is kind of interesting. I would say to some degree it levels out based on the number of positions open. There's also other factors, stimulus checks, unemployment, all those things kind of come into play, and you can kind of see ebbs and flows from a week to week basis, I think, where some of that stuff is coming into play. But overall, I would say the applicant flow, even though it's decreased a little bit, is fairly robust, and we're seeing candidates more engaged. So one thing that was very common prior to this was it's kind of a quick apply mentality. So you can go to any job board and click to apply and click to apply. But then when we'd go to contact a candidate, they were nowhere to be found. And so we're finding now the candidates that are applying are very engaged and interested and want to move forward quickly. So definitely a change, but not hugely impactful necessarily.
So are you seeing, and in some, I know in Colorado, and I'm thinking other states as well, there's an opportunity now for people to get their CNA, their nursing assistant certification, through doing I think it's an 8-hour class versus going through the long classes. Are you seeing that as an opportunity where people who weren't working in this field before are, able to come on board through that? Tony Knepp, is that happening in Pennsylvania as well? Sorry, I have to go with that question.
No, yeah. In PA, we have like a 2-week class that we do here. Thankfully, though, we've built it out ourselves, so we train our own CNAs.
Okay. And I could be, so if anybody's watching and I have it wrong, please pop in and tell me, but I'm pretty sure in Colorado that's what's happened. What opportunities are there, not just for right now during this crisis, but are there opportunities? And Meredith just popped in and said people are searching for meaning and purpose in their work. There's no better place for finding that than working alongside elders. So are there opportunities right now to introduce people to this incredible opportunity to have real purpose and meaning in your work, that not just for the short term, but to have them find this as a career? Are you seeing that? Or what other opportunities are you seeing?
We are seeing that. And that's actually an area that we're very much tapping into. So people that may have considered going into healthcare before, but they were working and, didn't want to make the jump or whatever the case may be, those people now are available, and in many cases. So, and you're correct, Jill, in some states, there is a very shortened period of time for training for CNA positions. And we're also seeing kind of a supplemental position, a resident assistant, a unit assistant that is there to support the certified team or the clinical team. So we are, as Tony Coccitto mentioned, not that we don't want to take advantage of a situation that overall is not a good situation, but there are places where we can tap into a market that we weren't able to previously tap into.
And so Tony, go ahead.
No, I think this is kind of a key area, right? So I think, again, especially people are out of work. So think about all the stuff that we see on TV. There's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of negative and really just negative news out there, but there's a lot of things going on about people going above and beyond. So there's a lot of giving and caring and nurturing and supporting each other. And how many times do we hear we're in it together? So there's a lot of that positive vibes going on. And so when somebody is seeing that, they're like, you know what, that makes me feel good by seeing that. So what could I be doing? And now they're looking at opportunities. And so the key is the content and the messaging that we're doing and everything and all the recruiting efforts that we're doing. So know who you are, know why you would be the place to work, and convey that in your messaging, whether it's job postings, whether it's social media, whether it's just referrals, just personal contact. So, the key is everybody in an organization should be a recruiter. It's not just an HR function. So think about if you work for an organization that is just truly a great place to be, tell your story to as many people as possible. And so the messaging is in all forms, not just job posting, but in everything that we're doing. And so the messaging needs to tap into the heartstrings of people. That what better place to care for the most vulnerable is being in elder care, whether it's clinical or non-clinical, and be real. I mean, don't have something look all fancy on your website, but when they come in, it's completely opposite. So you have to be true to yourself and leverage who you are to the fullest. So that's.
And I would add on there too is, I've worked in a community for so many years, and one of the things I miss always, and especially right now, is not belonging somewhere. Because when you work in a nursing home, assisted living, senior living community, you belong to a community. And so with people feeling that we're disconnected, like this is a great opportunity for people to really belong to something, make a difference, give back to the world. I mean, there's so much there, so much in these communities. What else? Any other opportunities that you see for organizations or different ways? You mentioned a few things, but and Tony Knepp, you might want to jump in a little. Are strategies different right now with this going on? Are there different ways you should be recruiting? What's changed?
Yeah, so Tony Coccitto brought up a great point of just communicating like your culture or your mission or what you're doing, right? So if any other long-term care facilities are here, right? I'm sure all of us have great mission statements and powerful values and things that sound really amazing, right? With what I mentioned earlier, what we hear over and over again with how candidates come here, why are they interested? Why have they taken the time to complete applications and phone screens and come out of their home, during a pandemic, for an interview, in some cases. And it's because they're driven by that culture or that sense for higher purpose. And they don't just want a job, to your point, Jill, they want a career. And, they're asking those questions. I mean, in particularly, RNs who are, not just looking for another staff RN position, but for looking for something that they can, do more in. So to your point of what opportunities exist, I mean, there is a massive opportunity for long-term care to let that mission show and shine. I don't want to put this in what better opportunity do you have than right now to show your commitment to your mission, to your residents, and then to your staff who are the lifeblood of your company. So when I say that, right, so you could be looking at me saying, okay, that sounds great, Tony, but how are you doing that, or how's Masonic Villages doing that? So for other companies here. So of course the baseline is thanking your staff. I mean, you should be doing that anyway, but here you might want to do it even more. And when you're thanking, you be specific and you be timely. So you do it right after something happens, and you be very specific about why you're thanking them, right? And then I would recommend all employers to be reaching out to their local communities and seeing what other businesses can do for them. So if anyone knows the name of Turkey Hill, you may have heard of Turkey Hill ice cream. So we reached out to them, and they actually donated 1,800 boxes of ice cream to Masonic Villages. So, we're a 24/7 campus. So we set up 8 different stations around Masonic Villages, wrote all of our employees little notes, and hand delivered them ice cream and notes, just thanking them for going above and beyond of what they're doing, right? We have signs everywhere across our campus, just thanking them. And it's just, once again, just showing our love to our own staff. So when you think of, being mission driven and okay, how how can we kind of put actions behind our words? So if you're a company and you know that maybe employees have lost their second jobs for a time being, or their spouses have lost their jobs. Okay, well, what can you do then, to support them, to help them, keep their same, standard of living or elevate it? Think about offering overtime, to your employees who need that, overtime in the areas that need it most, whether it be direct care, providing bonuses to your staff who are working, that like we're doing at Masonic Villages, that if staff are here, for the next 8 weeks, for at least the next 8 weeks, they're getting bonuses in their paycheck, on top of that. And then you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's nice, but we're not quite as big, right? We can't do those things. Well, then let's roll it back. And what can you do? How can your mission and your culture drive your policy changes? So when you think of the fear that's maybe going around that some people have, in relation to this, you probably have employees that are requesting leave or requesting work from home, are looking to keep, and it doesn't stem from them trying to keep themselves safe, but they probably have someone they really love and they care about, they want to keep safe. So how can your mission then enhance their quality of life? So you should be thinking about, okay, who can we actually let work from home? Mm-hmm. Who's requesting that, right? If someone can't work from home and they say, I can't be in a healthcare setting right now, because, I'm maybe a bit too scared, and it might, it could not be based in facts, but, okay, we're going to still support them. So if your employees are going out on leave, don't COBRA their benefits, which means don't have them pay the full cost for the medical benefits. We're not doing that at Masonic Villages. If they're going out on personal leaves, you have the right not to post their position. So we're not posting any employee who's going out on personal leaves for COVID reasons. Someone mentioned, I think, here about, quarantines and how the CDC and the government is mandatoring 14-day quarantines. Well, think about through your policy, can you be paying your employees while they're out on those 14-day if they can't work? Sure, don't have them use their own vacation. Some of them can, some of them can't. And even if they have that, are they going to feel really good about using their, 10 days of vacation to sit at home and do nothing?
Right.
So those are the type of opportunities and things that employers should be thinking about.
Well, and I think the impact of that is going to be felt for a long time, right? If you support your team members as much as you can, and like you said, change policies and change the way you approach things, people are going to remember that. And they'll also remember if they're not treated well. And I know everybody's doing the best they can right now. We've talked with other organizations that when their folks are out on quarantine, that they're still doing a daily check-in, like, hey, how are you doing? That's a great opportunity. One of the things we talk about with the Eden Alternative is the elders that live in communities aren't, it's not all about receiving care and being victims in this situation, but there's a role to play. There's wisdom that can be shared to help team members, to help, like, we've never lived through hard times like this, but the elders have lived through a lot more than we have. So how do you pull the elders in to help support your team members too with that? I'm sure you're doing those things too, Tony, knowing your organization.
And I think,
and you brought up a great point too of that. It's not like you don't have to do all those things, right? It's your own company and your own limitations, and people know when you're responding genuinely to your culture and to your values. And like we saw this back in 2008 during the recession and the crash. We responded, in the correct way, and that culture has still shown through, and it's just benefited in ways that we can't really manifest, because that culture does speak for itself when you're able to use this opportunity, to better your own community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's so important to point out that Masonic Villages and our other partners truly live out their mission. So it's one thing to attract the talent and to tell them, these are the benefits that the job offers, and these are the hours, and this is their mission statement. And then they may go there for an interview and that's not what they're feeling. Yeah. So it's so empowering and such an honor for our team to be able to talk about these things. Say, I'm driven by ice cream. I don't know about anybody else, but hey, they had 1,800 boxes of ice cream dropped off for their. I mean, I know that's not going to make somebody decide whether or not to take a job, but it could. It's those little things. That's my point. So those little things that make a difference. We had some partners actually, when this first started, giving out toilet paper to their team, stuff that they could order in bulk and then give out to their team members, their employees, toilet paper, hand sanitizer. We have partners that are helping with childcare, with transportation, so that people that were reliant on public transportation didn't have to take that anymore. So it's all those things that we can incorporate, not just into our messaging, but into those conversations with candidates, because we're wanting to connect with them on a rational level. Like, yes, we have jobs, and yes, we're in a safe environment, it's regulated, but also on an emotional level. This is why you want to work here instead of, healthcare organization down the road. So it's so much, it's really wonderful to be able to do our jobs and speak to those things and be very authentic and genuine and truthful about it when we do.
And we actually had a comment, Holly, that Nicole said, culture is super important. We had a caregiver candidate mention the caregiver website ad matched the supportive office staff, right? And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is what Nicole brought up. And there was a question here from Margot. We are in home healthcare and teach Eden at home. Does ECLA Go work with home health agencies?
That's an easy answer. Yes, absolutely. So home and community-based service is such a growing field. So again, many of our partners offer a full continuum. And so really driving the recruitment process for home health aides, RN case managers, all of them, it's an ongoing need that we have, and it's going to continue growing. So it's certainly a challenging area to recruit for, but again, it's about identifying and attracting folks that really desire that. You can't talk somebody into doing home care or home health, right? It's something that it's their calling. And so again, a lot of the same practices and philosophies for working on campus versus in the community, there's a lot of consistencies of what we're trying to do. And so we want to talk to folks that like the flexibility of working out in the community. A lot of them may not be able to commit full-time day in and day out on campus. So there's different reasons or motivations why people want to work at home care. But yeah, absolutely. We're finding it definitely takes resources and a lot of commitment and consistent efforts to really attract enough people, because we're finding a lot of the organizations, their growth is being stymied for home and community-based services because they don't have the staff.
Yeah.
And that's the number one challenge, because I don't know how if there's any one of our clients will say, no, we're good for home care or home health. We have enough people. We never hear that. It's always, if you have somebody who has it and really could fit the culture, bring them on. They'll hire them every time.
So
Absolutely.
How does that work then? So, and especially for organizations that don't have like a Tony Knapp, like they're not large enough to have, and even an organization that does have a Tony Knapp still works with ECLA Go. So if there's somebody watching right now and they have a home care company, or they're a big organization with senior living, or small, so you do their recruiting for them. Talk a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so it really depends on the organization. So the early discussions we have with them is, where are you today versus where you want to be, and how can we get you there? And so certain organizations will work side by side. They'll continue their own efforts while we'll really serve as an extension of them and help drive more qualified candidate flow into their system. And so there's a time and place where we work in conjunction to their own efforts. Then there's organizations that feel like, we would choose for ECLA Go to be our recruiting arm for the organization. And our job there is to brand the provider, not ECLA Go, but we're literally recruiting. Our recruitment marketing efforts is about enhancing our clients' market awareness as an employer of choice. And we actually drive the recruitment employment process from when a position becomes available through onboarding and working in close, collaborating closely with HR. And so it really is, where are you today versus where would you like to be, and what would be the best solution? So that's where we have early discussions of where can we best support you.
That's great. Really.
Yeah.
And we work, we're based in Rochester, New York, but we work with partners throughout the country. So geographically, it really doesn't matter where places are. We can kind of plug in and do our thing.
Awesome. Thank you. And there were a couple of comments. So Maria Kelly says, residents and care partners are all my family. I help wherever I'm needed. I love that. Love that very much. And I think there was another one. Oh, there were just some comments about resident service assistants. And I think the point, and this was Joanne that said that, a great way to help for the resident and frees up clinical staff. So I think those are non-certified or licensed folks who come in to support the clinical work. Is that?
They are.
Yeah.
And historically, we primarily saw resident assistants in assisted living type environments. So we would hire those because many of our partners are CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities. But what we're seeing now is, and have been before this, but it's becoming more prevalent now, or a more popular option, is bringing in those resident care assistants using different titles, unit assistants. It's really community dependent, but to support the clinical team in skilled nursing. And also that can be flexible to be at different parts of the building or different parts of the organization. So they may be working with residents to pass water or make beds or do some light housekeeping, but they also may be stationed at an entry point to take temperatures or things like that, maybe boxing meals because, the whole meal system has changed recently. So they can be used in a lot of different areas, have exposure into the field of healthcare and gain some experience without having to be certified or licensed.
And do you help organizations kind of brainstorm different ways of doing things like that? The people that you're working with?
We do. So a lot of time we're in a great, very unique position really, because our partners are all employers of choice in their marketplaces and a lot of best practices, but we kind of get to see it from an overarching perspective, and we can see what works at different places and what doesn't work. And we can make recommendations based on different scenarios and different issues that are cropping up. So we are able to leverage that across all of our partners or some of our partners based on, what the situation is.
That's great. That is great.
And Jill, what we've kind of noticed is I think it's really important for employers to stick with what is your strategy, right? Or what are your values, and set those in stone, and then be open to how you end up getting there. So be very fluid with your processes, but don't change kind of who you are or what you're looking for. Right is the key. And we've kind of have done that journey, with ECLA Go for, 9 years now, where it has evolved, from handing in paper applications to, doing applications on your phone under 5 minutes, to be able to texting applicants their application, texting them reminders like you would at a doctor's appointment, a day before an interview. Those are all things that just help accomplish, your vision or your strategy. But the how you get there, you have to be open to changing.
Tony, you're actually said what I was just thinking. So I think from a strategy standpoint, you have to have a process and really trust that process and hold people accountable that is involved in that process. And so you have to have a plan up front, a workforce plan, understand really how many staff you need based on your care needs, right? And then from there, once you have that process and everyone buys into that, you have to, and then it's all the little things that's being done. And so from a recruiting standpoint, the key is to not stop. You can't stop recruiting. So one thing, if we have organizations that say, no, we're good right now, we advise them, you may want to not stop because things can change pretty quickly. So never stop. And then from there, it's even before the pandemic hit, it's been a candidate-driven marketplace. And so we can't lose sight that it's still a candidate-driven marketplace. And so we really need to, when they apply or they're expressing interest in your organization, you need to be responsive. And then once you're responsive and you have those conversations, right now we're seeing from a current best practice for dealing with what we're dealing with today is, because you have to limit the amount of visitors people are coming on site. Most of our partners are doing interviews via doing a video interview, or they're doing it over the phone. And so so you have to treat those like an in-person interview. So if you have a scheduled day and time with a RN, for example, and it's a Zoom interview, for example, don't miss that interview. Like, really treat it like gold. And then have that experience for the candidate to be as positive as you can make it. So be engaged, be present, and take the time to allow them to ask questions and for you to convey why you should be interested in the organization. And then from the steps that happens after that interview, and this is what we do, again, from a process standpoint, and you want to be able to measure what's effective. The key measurement is how long it takes for somebody to get through the process from the time they interview to the time they actually start. And if it's too long, you will lose people to competitors. And so you don't want to rush things and have quality be compromised. But if there's a plan and everyone knows and owns their part in the process, things can still be done very efficiently with quality still in the forefront. And that's a key thing from a strategy standpoint, to understand that time is of the essence, and the experience from a candidate perspective for each step in the process is very important. So don't take the little things for granted.
I think that's a great point, Tony Coccitto. And if I can just tack on to that for a minute, the candidate experience is huge. And, it all ties, that's part of the mission too, right? At Masonic Villages, it's a mission of love. You love your residents, you love your team, but you've also got to love your candidates coming in. And, that's part of what we're doing on the front end. I think, I think I lost my train of thought, but, I think Tony Knapp, you had a great number that just shows the commitment and the dedication to the team and also to the process, and making sure it's kind of like a well-oiled machine. But since the start of the COVID, right? So since like the shutdown started and restrictions were put in place, I think, and Tony Knapp, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've onboarded 135 candidates in the 5 or 6 week period. So it just really shows the dedication and the commitment and the teamwork from everybody involved, because it would be very easy to say, I've got meetings, I've got to work from home, I've got to do this, I want to do that, and let things, and the commitment to the candidates, and at the end of the day to the current team and to the residents is just, it shines through in everything that's being done. Tony, was I right on that number?
Yeah, you were good. Yeah, good. And those are hired, and then we're working through 80 some people currently to get them started here. So to both of your points, it never really ends, the recruiting machine. So
if that's that it makes me think a lot about with marketing for like a CCRC, a life plan community, is you always have to have a pipeline of interested people. And every time the community that said, we stay 100% full with a wait list, we don't need to do anything, is the one that falls. Like, you stay full in a community by always recruiting residents. And the same thing holds true for team members. And we have to think about it like it is marketing now. And it is it is an applicant experience, and those days of people lining up just to come work there and you just sit there and take applications and they wait around as long as it takes, they're over, right?
Yeah.
So
That's very true. And I think part of our commitment to our partnerships is we're always trying to provide value to our partners. So sometimes we can be those eyes and ears, and we'll say to a hiring manager, hey, remember last year we were a little caught off guard in this department and you needed to replace all these people that were leaving for different reasons. Dining is a perfect example. So if you've got a bunch of high school and college students graduating at the end of the summer or at the beginning of the summer and leaving for, we can be those eyes and ears and reminders and help put strategies in place to always have that pipeline to draw from and know when to ramp up and know when to ease off a little bit and kind of manage that piece of things on their behalf, knowing what trends we've seen in the past and what things we see upcoming as well that might impact candidate flow.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, when you maybe don't, like, for example, at Masonic, we don't have at our one location any RN or LPN openings. So when we say the recruiting machine never ends, are we putting those candidates on hold and not engaging them? It's no. I mean, they have taken the time to apply and talk with, Holly's team for a reason, and for some reason they're invested. So we need to figure out why and see if that, mission lines up with one another, and have interviews and have conversations, do maybe references on them. So then when we do have an opening, because you're going to, that proven person can be the first person we pull to reduce our vacancies and open position time.
That's that makes me think too about marketing for a community is so, like, even when you're building a new community, you might have a year between when somebody puts a deposit down till they move in, but you're engaging them. And so how do you find opportunities when you don't have an RN position and an RN's applied, that you engage them with things that are going on in the community? You're sending them information, you're inviting them to things, maybe even at the community. And that had never occurred to me. Thank you, Tony Knapp. And I wish I had known all of you when I was running a community, because you would have made my life so much easier. Gosh darn it. But anything else? So I could talk to you all for hours more, but I know you have a lot of work to do. We are now at 52 minutes. I wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to share with people. Any last parting words of wisdom, advice you would want to share with people? We did have a question here about somebody asking how to connect with you all to talk more about your services. So is it to email Tony?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and it's in the comment section. So Tony@eklegoworkforce.com. But any final words for anyone? Thoughts?
Well, my closing thought is, through adversity is when we show our true character. And so it's amazing to see organizations that really have that culture that we all strive for. When you have that, this is where you can shine. And so this is in a moment we're all looking in the mirror and say, okay, this is who we are. And so take these experiences as we're so pleased that we put in the work to get to where we are today. So we were able to manage this crisis, versus, geez, we've got some work to do. It's really exposed us for areas that we need to work on, and be honest. And then on the back end of this, just to learn from it and to grow from it. So to me, this is an opportunity, and internally in our team, this is how we're all working from home. Holly, myself, and our team, we're all working from home, and it can really test you. And so this is an opportunity, in my opinion, to really reemphasize or identify what we can be doing and what we should be doing. So
thank you, Tony. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, and my last point, would be once again it would be to go back to your mission. And now is the opportunity to really let your culture shine and then to market that culture, right? ECLA Go, while they are amazing and they've been partners with us for nine years, like they can't do the culture part for us. We need to bring that to the table, just like they're bringing their expertise, their knowledge, their marketing. Are we back? That's why we like to call it a partnership. We're bringing that culture, we're bringing what we want, and then ECLA Go is bringing their expertise and their knowledge and best practices to help make that fit happen. So, my last words are really focus on your culture and figure out how can you take this opportunity to not just maintain, but better the lives of your residents and your staff.
Thank you, Tony. Holly, you want to jump in with the last word?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I think that really describes our partnership really well. And I think, we have to be a true representation of our partners' culture as well. So it starts from the very first, it really starts when they see the ad. So we're constantly working with our partners to tweak, to fine tune, to make sure we've got certain touch points. And in a true partnership, there's a lot of honesty involved in that. So sometimes we have to say, hey, a candidate said to me, like, they weren't feeling the mission of love when they came in. Or Tony may have to say to us, hey, I got this feedback from an applicant. This happened. They haven't heard from you. So there's a lot of honesty back and forth about that. But in general, it is very easy for us to talk to candidates about our partners because what they're doing is amazing. We are truly honored and humbled to represent them in the marketplace. So I think just like a lot of clinical candidates have a calling to what they do, my team may not have that clinical part of them. I think it's a very special person but we feel drawn and very passionate about who we represent and who we're taking care of at the end of the day. So we're just very honored, very grateful for our partnerships and love what we do.
Thank you, Holly. And so I encourage all of you who are on here to go back and look at some of the comments that have been popping in. We've had people from all over the country. And I do want to call out, if you have any communities you work with in Florida, that Donna commented on here that this makes her want to get back into elder care, and she might be looking for an opportunity. So if you have anything in Florida, I can't remember what town she said she was in, connect with her. Thank you all so very much for being here. This has been a great conversation. Love to have you come back again and talk more about, we're going to learn a lot through this. And I think even more lessons are to come. On Thursday this week, we're continuing the focus on workforce. We've got Matt and Hannah from Immediate. And what Immediate does is help to address the fact that so many people work and live paycheck to paycheck. And so what Immediate offers is the opportunity for team members to get their pay right after they work their shift, which is even more important than ever. So they're going to be joining us on Thursday. Next week, we've got the one and only Jack York from It's Never Too Late on Monday joining us. And then next Wednesday, Bob Kramer, founder of NIC and the founder of the new initiative Nexus Insights, will be joining us to talk about what's next for aging services and what will we learn from this current situation and where do we need to go. So Tony Knepp dropped off. Oh, he's back. He's back. As everybody, there's internet issues going on. Holly, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for the work that you do. Our field needs you, and we're thankful that you're in it.
We appreciate the invite, Jill. Thank you. We appreciate everything that you do for Eden and everything that you represent. So we thank you for all your efforts as well.
Thank you. Truly, thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone, for joining.